Uh, because in all honesty, in fairness, the YouTube algorithm doesn't like me much anyway, so I don't really care. What do
Yeah.
I look like? You know what I mean? No. But yeah, listen, man, I appreciate you doing this. It's an honor to actually have you. Um, because before we even get started, first of all, let me introduce you. You know what I'm saying? So for y'all, for those of you who do not know, I am a huge Skyrim, Fallout, Bethesda fan. I am like all in on all of their games since I played. This is the first time I played Oblivion back in like 2010, and this cat right here, Nate Gutierrez. Uh,
Gutierrez. I can't
Gutierrez,
pronounce it.
you
It's
will know,
Chinese.
but you all might know him as the Epic Nate 315 on YouTube. And if you follow his channel the way I do, you are used to hearing the dulcet sounds of his voice. Uh, I can't lie, it's a little bit flabbergasting for me to hear it live and just talking to me. So I can't lie, I'm excited. You know what I'm saying? So thank you for joining me. I appreciate you. The Epic Nate, ladies and gentlemen. Clap, 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 clap.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot for having me. I haven't done a podcast in a while. It's been a hot minute. But honestly, you were the first guy that asked, and I saw it in the comments. I thought, hey, this sounds pretty all right. That sounds like something to do.
I
And
yeah,
it's a pretty monumentous moment right now in Bethesda. Starfield just came out, hence my lack of sleep and recent frustrations. But if I turn this camera a little bit, you'll see a desk with a little pyramid of Topo Chicos and Dr. Peppers and Starbucks coffees. It's getting hectic over here.
you better drink some Bustelo like a grown up.
Oh, now that all the coffees are gone right now, but I did take a 5 hour energy just like
Oh my,
yeah, 3 minutes ago. So I'm in the game now.
yeesh. You know what? Whenever I drink one of those, it just makes me jittery. Doesn't really work for me too well. I,
Yeah, they're hit or miss.
well, I'm 41, man, so I need my coffee. I can't lie. I got to drink the coffee, and I can't lie. I'm one of those. I'm a night owl myself, so I'm usually up late at night, and I ain't gonna lie. I've been cramming for this interview by playing a bunch of Skyrim, and my girl is like, "Well, you're just playing video games." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm working."
Yeah, yeah, that's the beauty of this sort of like career is you get to just tell yourself that even the most mundane or like absurd activities are technically work. You get to go play Skyrim for 8 hours or play Starfield for like 100. Say no, I'm sorry, honey, I can't see you this week. I'm busy. We're basically working overtime doing crunch right now. It's it's tons of fun. I love it.
Yeah, she's not buying that shit. My girl
No,
ain't buying
no,
that shit. But
it's
so let's start off real quick. Let's start with the newest game, Starfield. Like I saw the first two joints you put out, the first two videos that you've dropped for that. Do you work with Bethesda, or is it like, how does that
so
work?
that first yeah, so that first video is very interesting. So I tech basically what happens is Bethesda back in I want to say May or June. As on my YouTube channel, I'm getting tons of different sponsor requests all the time. Just bunch of weird like shady companies based in Cyprus and like Tbilisi, Georgia. And in order to sort through them, I have one of my personal friends, Jessica West. I reach out to her. I'm like, hey, do you want to manage this inbox for me and just keep an eye on all of the correspondence coming in? And she's like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And I'm like, I'll give you like 10% of any sponsorship we do end up signing. So Jessica joins. I give her a company email address, and God bless her, she's not keeping up with it particularly well. So in around like I think we start our relationship with that back in maybe May. And then by June, maybe it was March. By June, whatever the case, I'm like, all right, I'm going to take ownership of this inbox again, and don't worry about it, Jessica. And she's like, all right, yeah, it sounds good. And hilariously, as August 15th rolls around, I notice a bunch of YouTube channels are getting are getting early access to Starfield. Starfield's supposed to release on September 5th, at least for people who have premium or constellation editions.
Mhm.
But instead, I'm seeing a bunch of YouTubers get the game, and I'm thinking, oh, what the heck is this? Like, that's interesting. Like, I need to figure out how to get in on this because this is what I do for a living. So I send out a bunch of emails, and I'm thinking, what's going on? Did Bethesda snub me? What are they mad at me for some reason? And then I go ahead and I check Jessica's old inbox, and there is a email in there from a company. She didn't recognize the significance of this company. I'm not sure if I can say the name of it, but it's basically the company that Bethesda does most of their marketing with.
Okay.
And that company sent an email to us, and I recognize the name of that company. I see it. I'm like, okay, because I've worked with them before. My previous email friend did not recognize that name. So I click on the email, and it's hilarious. It was signed, I think, the day before I took ownership, or sent out the day before I took ownership of the email address again, and it says, "Hey, Epic Nate, we would like to work with you on a new game. We can't tell you the name of the game, but if you sign this NDA, we will. So just sign this NDA, and we'll tell you what's going on." And Jessica was like, "We're sorry, Nate only works on Bethesda games," and filtered it into spam. And I immediately was like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." And we got back and forth, and within a couple of days, they got me an early go to Starfield, and they requested a sponsored video, which was the one I released on September 4th, I believe.
Mhm.
It was the first of those two videos.
Okay.
So that's my recent extent with Bethesda. But other than that, I don't really work with them particularly heavy. The previous sponsorship I did with them was like back in 2020.
Mhm.
There was this integration for Google Stadia, I think. And rest in peace to
Yeah,
that
that
platform.
didn't last.
Yeah, but they were doing this thing with ESO and Google Stadia. It was a good fit, but it was not rip Stadia. That was they spent a lot of marketing money and then retracted that product shortly after.
Yes.
But
Yeah, they really did,
yeah,
because that was not going to work. It's not, Google's good for many things, but gaming is not their forte, as they say. It is what it is.
the latency was just a deal breaker, I think, for most people, because like even if there were some issues with like settings on the devices. Like it did like the games didn't look particularly great. They were running at what seemed to me like lowish settings, and then they had tremendous latency issues. The lag was ridiculous. So
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense.
You
I'm
know
not.
what? And you shout out Todd Howard all the time. I'm a fan, even though I know we're probably going to be waiting till like, what was this, 2023? So we're probably not going to get Elder Scrolls 6 until like 2037. So, you got to do something in the meantime. And Starfield is their newest thing. How is it to you as a gamer, as somebody who's a fan of their games? And keep in mind, now, for me personally, my favorite Bethesda game, honestly, aside from Skyrim, is one that Bethesda did not make, and that's Fallout New Vegas. So, you know.
Yeah, that's a pretty common take. New Vegas is interesting because it didn't really. I don't think people really began to appreciate that, and I didn't begin hearing that opinion that like people consistently expressing such praise for the game until after Fallout 4 released, and that's when it seems people went back and they had a bit of a soul searching moment and realized that game really was. It's insane what that tiny team at Oblivion was able to just scrape together over the course of just what was maybe a year and a half.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's essentially a Fallout 3 DLC with on its architecture. But Starfield it's great. It's certainly a lot better than Fallout 76, a game which everybody has since forth forgotten. I'm impressed, particularly with what they were able to do with the creation engine. They made a lot of changes to it, and I wasn't necessarily sure what to expect because this is the engine architecture that Bethesda's running on is as old as Oblivion.
Right.
This is the same like skeleton that Oblivion was made on. The console commands are all the same. The kernel codes are the same. and I was skeptical of that thing's ability to scale up
Mhm.
for a modern game, but I think it did a very good job. I'm really impressed at how some of the lighting is. It is the best running Bethesda game they've ever made. I don't think it's ever crashed on me.
That's
It's
saying
which is
something.
Yeah. As for the gameplay, the story is definitely Bethesda's best main quest line. I don't want to spoil anything particularly, unless you want me to.
I don't
But
care. Yes. Spoil
have you
away.
played it? Have
No,
you played
no,
it?
no, no, no. I haven't played it because I'm one of those people that waits. I'm a waiter. I patiently wait. I haven't even bought a PS5 yet because, and of course, I probably won't be able to play Starfield on the PS5. I have to get an Xbox Series XS, whatever the hell it is, or do it on PC. But I'm a console guy. I grew up, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis, PlayStation 2. Like I'm a console kid. So for me, I usually wait until all the bugs have been fixed. Like I recently started playing Cyberpunk 2077 just because they fixed all the bugs and everything, and it's still buggy. You know what I'm saying? But Skyrim is still buggy, and Skyrim is literally my favorite game of all time. It literally is. And that's saying a lot because I've played a lot of games in my life, like fighting games, but first person shooters, rail shooters, but RPGs tend to be my favorite genre of game. And Skyrim, when it dropped, I loved Oblivion, the quests, the side quests. When I finally became the Gray Fox, I was hyped. You know what I'm saying? Like I genuinely love Bethesda's storytelling. I never played Morrowind because I didn't even know about Morrowind like that. Um, but Skyrim to me is like the perfect game because it has everything in it that I genuinely love. It's got swords and sorcery, there's dragons, I can shout at people, you have love interests and all that, but it's still just one of those games that I will never put down. And I've been playing it since November 11th, 2011. I've been playing that. And every re-release they do, I get it.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah. The re-releases are an infinite money printer that I hope they continue to take advantage of. Um, so with spoilers, I guess, kind of on the table, the story is in my opinion the best like primary main quest line story that they've told so far. They've the Skyrim. So what I love about Skyrim and Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 really isn't necessarily the main storylines, but it's kind of the ancillary world building and
mhm.
environmental storytelling around it. It's really neat to go like all right, I'm gonna go deliver this crown, and on the way you meet like this talking dog who's telling you about his like his demented demon master and asking you to save him. Like that's hilarious.
Yes.
Or in Fallout 3, you're wandering around and you have these little robots going around the world jingling patriotic music.
Yep.
200 years like that's hilarious. That's goofy. It's funny. And I like how they incorporate that character into the worlds they build. Starfield is a little unique because its strength is, in my opinion, its main narrative. It does a really good job at kind of this is sort of it's a spoiler in the sense that I'm spoiling what happens in the first 4 hours, but Earth has been destroyed by the
Right.
time Starfield starts. Its magnetosphere has collapsed or spun off, and that has allowed the planet just to get overwhelmed with solar radiation. No one lives there anymore. And it's neat how the game, like for the first 8 or 12 hours, kind of like builds up this mystery of like makes you ask what happened to Earth exactly.
Mhm.
Like when you're told to go to Earth the first time, maybe 2 hours into the game, and you see it as this barren wasteland. It's a really neat moment. It's a neat reveal, and they toy around with revealing exactly what happened. As a sort of motivation to keep you playing through the game, and then of course there's more going on. You encounter these mysterious initially it's assumed extraterrestrial guys called the Starborn, which is hilarious because like they didn't really change that much from Dragonborn at all.
Mm.
But so you got these Starborn who you're encountering, and you got to find out who they are. I had a great time with the main quest line. Um, The way the planets work is kind of interesting, though. Pretty much all of the planets, except for a few, and even those are mostly this, they're procedurally generated.
Okay.
And um, and that, in my opinion, lends itself less so to the experience I was mentioning earlier, when you're wandering around the roads of Falkreath or Riften, and you just stumble upon a body, and that leads you on this crazy uh, side quest chain, or captures your attention. Instead, because the worlds are procedurally generated, they're often beautiful, they're often gorgeous, but they have less of that. The worlds are a little less exciting to explore, and that's probably my biggest criticism of the game right now. Is it's almost it was kind of the same thing with No Man's Sky. Like, yeah, there are
Mm.
a billion planets, but um with procedural generation, that only lends itself to so much interest. The planets where there is life, there's only like three or four species of creatures to interact with, which is um like a lot of the creatures do look really neat. They're creative characters, but like you'll land on a planet, you meet like, oh, this planet has these walking flower things and these bloatfly creatures. Okay, next, and then
Yeah.
you go around. So that, in my opinion, is probably my biggest frustration. But beyond that, it makes up for that with the storyline. Shipbuilding is actually really good, as is outpost building. Those two mechanics are great. And fundamentally, I think it's going to be a really, really good platform for the modding community once they get around to
Mm.
rolling those tools out, which I think is that's a big reason behind the sort of continued cultural significance of Skyrim and Fallout 4, is they have these modding communities behind them that were able to extend their lifespans far beyond those of what a normal game is able to achieve.
You know what? The modding community, and as a non-tech savvy human being, I don't know anything about coding or anything like that, but some of the mods I've seen for these games, and just the way they've been able to splice in new areas, new quests, new NPCs, you know what I'm saying? Being able to go back to Cyrodiil in Skyrim, like, to me, that was like, holy shit, that's amazing. Like, I can't believe they're able to do this. And the modding community keeps these games fresh and new. I don't know another game I genuinely loved, and of course, again, it's Obsidian who made it. The Outer Worlds is a dope game. I don't know if there is many mods for it, as far as I know, but I genuinely love that game too. It's and I guess Bethesda and Obsidian kind of go neck and neck, hand in hand for me, as far as a game development studios that I genuinely love pretty much everything they've ever put out. But I wonder, do you mod, or do you just know, like, you just research the mods and talk about them and things like that?
So I have not made a mod before personally, but in over like the course of, I guess you could say, my Bethesda career, I've gotten pretty familiar with, you could say, the back end of it, like the creation kit. The reason modding is so prominent in the Bethesda community is Bethesda essentially releases the tools that they develop the game on. They release the creation kit architecture with every new game, and that just gives the modding community a tremendous amount of access. Like
Mhm.
Rockstar, or trying to think what's another big open world developer right now.
C-
Rockstar, or
CD Project
yes,
Red.
CD Project Red. I don't think they would dare release that amount of their own proprietary assets for people to play around with. But Bethesda's very, they recognize that they get a lot back from that, so they're good about that. And over time, I've learned a lot about the creation kit, how it works. One of the reasons I've gotten particularly invested into it is when I'm researching for details videos or like a certain mystery, it helps to be able to access that creation kit, because you can go back and you can look at a lot of unused assets and a lot
Mhm.
of like cut quests and markers buried deep in there that give you a better idea of what Bethesda was originally planning when they were making the game. There's so much cut content in all of these games, and I
Oh
hope
yeah.
we get to see that reflected in Starfield. It's like Fallout 4 was going to have this underwater vault with a giant squid that you'd visit after completing Admiral Zhao's quest, and then that's just gone. That's just gone.
Yeah.
But there's like it's neat going back and seeing what's in there. I can't wait to do it with Starfield. The problem is they also usually bleach the creation kit maybe a year before it's released. So even though we have like in Fallout 4 and Skyrim, even though there's a tremendous amount of unused content in the files they give us, that's not all of it. There was a lot more that they specifically bleached and wiped from there because they didn't want people going back and looking at it. But yeah, that's kind of my experience with it. There was one time, I want to say back in April of 2020, I was making a video about Covenant. Covenant's a settlement in Fallout 4. It's where you take the GOAT exam before entering. And it's real fucking bizarre because you go in there and you meet these guards later on in the Covenant quest line. Man, I picked a very tight shirt today. But you meet these guards in the Covenant quest line. And if you look very carefully at their armor, they're wearing like stained Vault-Tec security armor.
That's right.
It's really neat. And there's these Vault-Tec like GOAT posters all around. And I did a video on that, and in it we visited vaults, I want to say 89. It's the somewhat normal vault in the game where everyone's kind of living and vibing. And in there is this classroom, and where let me roll back a little bit. What I was trying to do was determine whether or not the assets used in the GOAT posters we see around Covenant were unique to Fallout 4, whether or not Bethesda created those, or if they were just ripping assets from Fallout 3 and reusing them.
Right.
Because if the developers deliberately remade those posters, I think it communicates a little bit more about their intentions and the significance of the settlement. Whereas if they're just ripping assets, it's a little bit easier to be like, all right, we can overlook this. Well, in the creation kit, we found that those assets were used in one other place because you can inspect a reference number. And those GOAT poster assets were being used in vaults 83, 82, 80. Now, what's 80 something?
I think it's 81.
Vault 81. 80. The one number I didn't say.
And the only reason I know that is because I recently rewatched that video like yesterday.
Oh, okay. Really? Yeah. So we find out the assets are being used in that vault. We go there and we can't find the fucking poster. I spend like 3 hours in an Adderall-laden trance trying to find a single poster. I can't. Turns out Bethesda had scheduled this event, which they made a mistake in the creation kit. It was supposed to trigger at 8 p.m. They placed an extra 0 in there, so it triggers at 80 p.m., which is not a time that exists
At all.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be this event that occurs in the classroom where the teacher dims the lights and she has a presentation preparing her kids from the vaults. And me and my friend Creedy Chameleon realized this, and Creedy fixed it in a single, just deleted the 0 and uploaded that as a mod to the Nexus. So that's the closest experience I have with actually modding.
And it's funny because I watched that video, and in it, she goes in and she tells them all about the GOAT test, and I think the little I forget the little girl's name that sends you on the mission for the cat that doesn't act the way a cat actually acts, and she's like, "Oh yeah, am I gonna be able to do it?" Sure, you will, baby. But that's a dope Easter egg for those of us who definitely played Fallout 3 and took the GOAT test and. It was like, nah, listen. And of course, after class, I went back and was like, those answers weren't the ones I wanted, man. Do this.
Yeah. Well, it is such a tremendous Easter egg. And that was sort of what had me so excited about the video, is that it was a broken one that no one seems to have ever seen before. They added that little scene into the game. And because 1-0 was where it shouldn't have been, and a stage marker wasn't set properly, that had like I don't think that scene exists in the console versions. It's possible now the unofficial patch modders have fixed that up and put it in, but yeah, it's really neat the attention to detail they have, and how their attention to detail in that scene was accidentally, I guess, overlooked by themselves.
And I mean, we as the people who actually just play the games, we have some some of us have an idea about how hard it is to actually code a video game. And then, we always lambast Bethesda and other studios for having these bugs and things that just happen, headless chickens, headless people running around, yada, yada, yada. But in essence, yeah, people do make mistakes, and people aren't very cognizant of that or very forgiving of that, it seems sometimes. And that, to me, that's like a slight on people who just don't know. You know what I mean? Like, they don't know what it takes to go into that.
Yeah, I've never been especially bothered by the Easter eggs. At this point, I think they're almost, or the bugs, I should say. At this point, they're almost endearing. Like seeing a giant chicken or like a headless NPC walking around or a floating courier. It's pretty funny at this point. Um, like you encounter people. I've encountered a few people personally who are like, "Oh, I don't like Bethesda games; they're too buggy," and I definitely can't resonate with that attitude at all because the bugs have never impacted the experience tremendously. I think there's only been maybe a couple of times in what's got to be like 6,000 hours now where a bug has actually like seriously impeded my ability to move forward on a quest. But thankfully on a PC, you can usually get around that pretty easily with just console your way through a quest that's broken or anything. But yeah, the bugs have never been super rough for me, and that's definitely not a problem with Starfield. They polished the shit out of that game. That year they took seems to have gone to good use.
I believe it, because they could not have another Fallout 76 on their hands with this one. They couldn't.
Yeah.
They couldn't. And Fallout 76 now, you play it now, where with the NPCs in it now it feels like an actual Fallout game, as opposed to what it was prior to that, where it was just like, all right, I'm running around, but this is boring. I don't want to. There's nobody to talk to. There's nobody to. Where do you get your missions? And I played for an hour and was like, nope, I'm done. Like,
I have a funny story about that. So when Fallout 76, I believe it was announced in 2018, and they had this sort of early access beta period for people who pre-ordered. So of course I was right on top of that. And I remember I was on the phone with my girlfriend as maybe an hour after I downloaded the beta and started playing. My girlfriend calls me and we start talking. She's like, "So how do you like your new game?" And I'm thinking, babe, I can tell you right now, I'm going to be making Skyrim and Fallout 4 videos for another 5 years because this is not it, as they say. But even 76, it had the bugs were definitely a problem, but its issues transcended those for sure. It was
microtransactions, the lack of NPCs. Like, those are the two things that really stuck out to me as like, okay, no, y'all are fucking up. Like,
yeah. Yeah, it seems that there was some sort of interesting financial incentive behind there that I still don't quite understand. One theory I've heard is that they were trying to boost their revenue inputs because they were about to get sold, and it was ultimately Microsoft who bought them, so they were trying to whip up something to increase the revenue stats. But yeah, it was very disappointing. It ran, unlike Starfield, it was pretty much running on the exact same engine as Fallout 4, so much so that like half of the assets were just ripped from Fallout 4. This the exact same weapons, the exact same, which really destroyed the novelty of it. And it was in exchange for like really light, moderate improvements to their lighting engine,
right,
which weren't optimized with the game. It ran awful. Oh yeah, but now hilariously, now they've started to make, they've stuck with the game. Fortunately, there is a real dedicated community around Fallout 76, and I've sort of found a way to make that work into the content, because what you do, what you got to do is you got to trick people into watching a Fallout 76 video. You got to say, all right, guys, today we're investigating a Fallout 4 mystery,
right,
and here's how Fallout 76 adds to it. And I think that's a nice little way to sort of get people's attention on the game, and they do address a lot of these Fallout 4 plot holes pretty regularly. But yeah, that's what an interesting story Fallout 76 is, and it's fun saga.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's one of those games where if you picked it up on first launch, it was like, All right, what are we doing here? And then just a few years later, now it runs well. But I think, especially for me, one of the things that and again, I love Fallout 4. I genuinely do. I think it's a fantastic game. You know, the voice acting is phenomenal. Nick Valentine is one of my favorite characters ever. But it doesn't have the panache that Fallout New Vegas or even Fallout 3 had, to where your choices matter. And I think that that's something that took away from the enjoyment of it, is that the things you do, the things you say don't generally affect people. Yeah, you can kill an NPC and they might get mad at you, but you know, Preston Garvey's never going to actually leave you, you know?
Yeah, that was a big issue with Fallout for them, and that's kind of what made me so surprised about the strength of Fallout or of Starfield's story, was that Fallout 4's main narrative was not particularly as inspiring as they wanted it to be.
No.
They were stuck in this weird mix of trying to like retell Blade Runner, like play with the same themes of do androids dream of electric sheep, but they did it almost. It felt somewhat half-hearted. Their attempt at it, like Blade Runner and that thing. Those Philip K. Dick. He's like asking really existential questions about life, and I never I never felt Fallout 4 gave me the same emotional highs or lows that the work it's inspired from was. And as you said, they were so invested in trying to do this multiple factions main storyline,
Right.
that what it ended up feeling like was that there were no real factions and there was no main storyline. And of course, yeah, your choices mattered in the macro sense. Like, yes, you can destroy the Institute, and now a bunch of Brotherhood of Steel or Minutemen guys will be in Diamond City. But it's often sort of the micro sense where the choices are where they play with choice best. Where like really we're smaller decisions, like does this guy die, and what happens over here. And I didn't get the same vibe out of that. The world in Fallout 4 was almost smaller than I had anticipated. I remember I remember Fallout 4 came out when I was like what, a junior in high school or something. And I remember playing the game on release day and checking my little Pip-Boy and thinking, oh boy, is this, this is it. Okay. And moving on. So yeah.
I mean, like I said, there are elements to Fallout 4 that definitely work. The gun modifications, the NPCs that you meet, the different characters that they have. The story itself is actually pretty good. I enjoy the story. I like working with all the different companions that you get. Honestly, like I said, Nick Valentine is probably my favorite, but I love Kate. I genuinely love having Piper with me. Though it's things like that. I genuinely wish, but like there should have been like I would have loved if I could have, instead of having to just straight murder Kellogg, I could have recruited him. You know what I'm saying? It kind of got him to turn over a new leaf, you know what I'm saying? To kind of avenge his kid and his wife or what have you, you know. I would have loved to see more of that played with, more sea creatures, things of that nature. Like even Far Harbor is dope. Nuka World is dope. But there are things that you could have been able to do or say to an NPC that would have made another NPC hate you. Like, when you talk about Fallout New Vegas, and Arcade Gannon will straight leave you if you decide to work with Kaisar's Legion. Like that's an amazing story element to me, you know?
Yeah, I think like to that point about like Kellogg, even there were several plot points that they just kind of abandoned in the middle of the game. Like Nick Valentine has that moment after you visit Kellogg, like you visit his memories and whatnot, where he seems to suggest that like Kellogg is resurfacing in his personality. Like he goes on that little quip, and then they just think never happens again. Nothing. So something they had plans for that were not fully realized. But one of my biggest issues with Fallout 4 is that if you look at Fallout's 1, 2, 3, New Vegas especially, these are very dark games with how dark they can go.
Oh
Like
yeah.
Fallout 3 really it really reminds you that you are living in this sort of hell as you
Hmm.
go out in DC and you find like these like innocent women tied up in super mutant camps. Like, what the fuck is that? You go to Paradise Falls and it's like, oh yeah, like and they are enslaving people
Yeah.
in it like these are really dark games, and they emphasize how brutal and twisted human nature can be in its most awful forms. And Fallout 4 doesn't really entertain those themes in the same way.
No.
They don't like yeah like Kaisar's Legion in New Vegas is sort of the encapsulation of this like almost like hellish or like these hellish morals and values that somehow imposing a sense of order, at least they interpret that. And just Fallout 4 almost has an upbeat and optimistic tone that in New Vegas is, or not New Vegas, 76 is the same way, that isn't really consistent with their previous work. And I don't know why they made those narrative decisions, those changes, but I do think it kind of it sort of detracts from the experience a little bit, and it
Hmm.
makes me understand when people say like, "Oh, these don't feel like Fallout games," because they don't embrace those same themes anymore. Like the Minutemen are like they are the good guys, and that's it. That's it. They are good guys. There's never you don't encounter those same dark moments in that way. It's a very different game.
And they kind of spoon feed you a lot in that game. Like literally within the first hour or two, you get some power armor. You get, it's things like that. Like, come on, like dog meat literally is just sitting there waiting for you, which does lend credence to one of the Skyrim or Fallout mystery videos you put out, where it's like, is dog meat a synth? Yeah, I would think so, but who
It's
knows?
it's the best way to explain that little bit of storytelling. That's where it makes the most sense. But yeah, they messed up progression for sure, in my opinion. Giving us a power armor suit so early was I guess they really wanted us to have a whoa, this is fucking cool moment early in the game, and it happened, I suppose, but at what cost
Right.
did
Well,
did that come?
and I'll say, but the the graphics that are in that game, if I could get Fallout 4's graphics in Fallout New Vegas, I wouldn't be mad at that. I would love to see a Deathclaw like that in New Vegas, because those look like Deathclaws in almost every other Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, they look scary. But the ones in Fallout 4, that's genuinely a terrifying thing. Like super mutants, going into the glowing sea, all of these different aspects of the game, it doesn't feel as weighty as it does in the previous games. And I find and I'm wondering why they made those choices. You know what I'm saying?
I think something important to understand about Bethesda, and I suppose to a similar extent about Obsidian, is that at this point in time, there has been so much personnel change in both of these studios that they're not really the same companies anymore.
Right.
Like if you like the people who made Skyrim, uh, I would dare say most of those people did not make Starfield. Many
Right.
of those people were gone by Fallout 4. They onboarded a tremendous amount of talent. If you compare the credits between Fallout 3 and Starfield,
Right.
like I think Fallout 3, it might have actually been like 60 people or something
Yeah.
like that, like a
Yeah.
very small. There are thousands of people credited in Starfield and whatnot, and with that sort of I think with that upscaling, it's possible that they decided that the sort of dark universe, those sorts of stories don't work anymore. I think now it's increasingly they have increasing pressure to play it a little bit safer now with again nowadays you will not be given a quest where you go to Little Lamplight and convince a poor little girl to put on a slave cult. That's gone. That's not happening again.
No, you know.
Yeah, they can't do that anymore. So there have been some changes to the cultural zeitgeist that make that a little bit harder, but also just the personnel they're working with is so radically different than before. And now back in those days, back when they were making Morrowind, for example, may have been less people. It might have been like 20, 40 people. When they were working with these small teams, it was possible for these really interesting talents to shine through. Like you had Michael Kirkbride, who basically built so much of the structure around the Elder Scrolls lore, who is such an interesting character.
Yeah.
A very interesting guy, but talents like people like him have a lot more difficulty breaking through the mold when there's 2,000 other people in the credits, and now they have an assistant deputy writer and a deputy to the assistant writer and all these layers and layers of personnel that makes those really creative moments that defined Bethesda's early work a lot more difficult to recreate in a sense.
Is that the corporatization of Bethesda, being bought out by Microsoft? Do you think that had anything to do with it? Because I do.
Yeah. I think to an extent, but that corporatization predates the Microsoft acquisition substantially. Yeah, I think that was that. Like, I think the beginning of that, when it first becomes obvious, is Fallout 4, and it's like okay, like there have been some serious narrative changes. I think that game had a very long credits list, so it's been a long time coming, and it's been very slow, and I don't know what to expect going forward, because I think Microsoft recognizes the value that they have with the company. They recognize like, oh, this gives us this is a significant asset in our jockey with Sony, but yeah, at the same time, I'm not so sure how they might feel about these conundrums. They like, just looking at the credits list for Starfield, all of the outsourcing, the thousands of people on it, it seems as though this is sort of the new normal. This is what we're going into. But I will also say Starfield was a very good game. I think what it did more than anything is it made me optimistic for the Elder Scrolls 6. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. The Elder Scrolls deals with a lot less controversial themes than Fallout does. It's not nearly as dark of a universe. So those two concerns are muted. And I do think they retain their ability to build amazing worlds. Fallout 76, for all of its flaws, had a really great world around it. They what I was saying earlier, the stumbling into a talking dog. Of course, you don't stumble into anything that's talking in Fallout 76, but the world itself does contain those distractions in a really great way. It was built very well. The environmental storytelling of Fallout 76 is great. The level designers showed up to work. And that was, that's post corporatization, all that stuff. They were still able to do something interesting, and I guess we just gotta wait and see. It's not much I can do. If I could walk into the offices and demand some changes, I would. But I've tried that already, and they said I had to go home.
I believe that. That's why I don't go nowhere like that. But it's funny because and you really think about it, you're like, yeah, Skyrim deals more in fantasy. So there's a lot more you can do in that genre than you could in Fallout. But my thing is, I feel like Fallout 4, and as much as I love the game, yeah, they kind of played it a little too safe in certain regards and certain aspects, certain storytelling elements, but I don't understand why. Because you're dealing with a story where you're set in a post-apocalyptic world. So in all reality, the morals and values of what came before should not hold much sway, and of course your creative license, your creativity should not be hindered by that, especially in a game like that, because by the way I think, if I'm doing something where it's post-apocalyptic, then I expect there to be a lot of evil people. I expect there to be slave rings like in Fallout 3 and things like that. I expect a Kaiser's Legion and things like that. I expect that in a post-apocalyptic world. Maybe because I'm desensitized to it from playing the game, but that makes real actual sense to me. So I wonder why they went down that path in that game as opposed to letting the darkness kind of seep in a little bit more.
Yeah, I thought about that a lot. I believe the game's lead writer and sort of narrative director, Emil Pagliarulo, I do believe he explicitly in some interview did mention that was their objective, was to make Fallout 4 a more upbeat and optimistic game. I think the musical score by Ion Zur really reflects that. It's got this sort of chorus that makes you feel really optimistic. It's a really, really good OST.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what was behind a decision like that. I want to say like, oh yeah, this is clearly the corporatization, but I don't know. Corporations put out dark shit all the time, right? So I'm not. It's not necessarily obvious to me that was the defining factor. Maybe honestly, maybe they just wanted to do something different. Maybe they were in an upbeat, optimistic, like sort of vibe at the time of making that game, and it just didn't and it just lent itself to a different narrative. Fallout 76 is interesting because it's sort of almost a middle ground between the darkness and Fallout 4's optimism.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird because you can't really tell. I'm very critical of a lot of the narratives that Fallout 76 has. I think a lot of those were hastily compiled, particularly the ones revolving around NPCs. So it's difficult for me to even discern what they like, if they were conscious of managing the tone. But yeah, I want to know. Maybe they were all in a good mood when when they made Fallout 4.
They were all on Mentats.
yeah, they were all on Mentats, vibing in the office, and
but even with that, like, think about it, like, they have a significant drug problem in these games. Like, they have, the elements are kind of, they have the darker elements of drug addiction, of, you can have sex in these games. You can, unlike Cyberpunk 2077, they don't show it, but because they show it in that game, they really do. Cyberpunk is a very strange game. I genuinely love it, but it's a very strange game. But they have those darker elements. But again, it's like the score, the overall feel of it is much brighter. It's like it is more optimistic, and I guess that's the best way to describe it. Quickly, what is your favorite mystery coming out of Fallout 4?
Ooh, coming out of Fallout 4, it might be the Covenant one. It might be that one. I think that's really neat. There's something going on with it. There's clearly a connection with Voltec, but it's not clear whether or not those, like, the people who founded Covenant were the same people who had that break from Vault 111 prior to our exit, or if they were from Vault 101, because those poster assets do designate Vault 101.
Yes, they do.
I think that's really neat. I also this one is less. Well, I guess really my favorite one. The thing is, it's not so much a Fallout 4 mystery in and of itself, but a much broader Fallout mystery. Is the shit going on with Dunwich and that Lovecraftian subplot, which Bethesda seems to really recognize that. They recognize the strength of that plot, and that's really driving a lot of the current Fallout 76 updates. There have been several updates and events that they've had that really just revolved around those themes. They had the Blue Moon, they had the Zayden invasion, and then of course they have they have that interloper character and the Mothman cult. There's a lot of stuff behind that. There's I did a video on the Dunwich mystery
Yeah.
maybe back in January. I thought that was going to be the end of it. I thought like, all right, boom, that this is the complete compendium of all of the love. No, no, there's so much more. I missed so much shit, and they've got so much more coming out. It's insane.
I ain't gonna lie, one of my favorite mysteries, honestly, is what's going on with I forget the name of the killer in the sewers who leaves the bones with the chalk, or, the chalk. I love that mystery. Why Glory doesn't have a synth component, even though she's a Gen 3 synth, like that one makes, I don't get it, but is she a synth? Is she not? Is she just a crazy human? Who knows? Like they have a lot of great mysteries within that game, that I'm guessing we'll have to wait until Fallout 5 to get answers to. I for one would love to see what happens if what's the dude who had his pops locked in the insane asylum.
Cabot,
The Cabot
Lorenzo
house.
Cabot's.
I want to see the Cabot family in the next one as they go about the rest of their, existence. Do they actually get to live forever, and do they just continue to age, or do they eventually die off? Like, I would love to see that, because I just want to know.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny you should mention Glory. Actually, I have just today, the YouTube short I'm going to post, hopefully today, is actually about Glory. It's going to be titled Fallout 4's Fake Synth, and it's a little compendium about her. But yeah, no, the Cabots are great, and the Cabots themselves, they're connected with that broader Dunwich stuff.
Right.
Like they mention Abremelin generators protecting Lorenzo, and that's a whole Lovecraftian thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you saw that video, but there's in Fallout Shelter Online, there are these you can meet Lorenzo Cabot,
Right.
and there are these collectible cards you can get. And Lorenzo Cabot's card has him like standing in front of one of those brutalist like faces behind him.
Yeah.
The same face we encounter at the bottom of Dunwich.
Right.
It's really neat. Just the serious like cosmology they seem to have developed around that honestly supersedes my interest in the actual story itself.
It's funny, the Mothership Zeta DLC from Fallout 3. And I think what Fallout 4 takes place 10 years after Fallout 3, I think, in the timeline.
Yeah.
So it would have been, so obviously we know that if you played that DLC on Fallout 3, you take out the mothership, you take out the other mothership, and you can go back and forth between the space station. But the Zetans still show up in Fallout 4 10 years later. So I wonder what happens with that. Like, why I want them to kind of combine that and get that story told. Like, well, what happened to this protagonist in this from Fallout 3? Does the Lone Wanderer come up to the Commonwealth, and does he follow Dr. Zimmer back and go working into the, the institute and things like that? Like, I want those dots connected, because I love a good story, and I think those are excellent story beats.
Oh yeah, for sure. It might be my favorite thing about what they do these days. The Zayden thing is interesting because it implies you did not take out their only mothership, or there's something going on. I'm not sure how invested in Fallout 76 you are, but they did have an event. It initially released, I want to say, in 2020, but they just re-released it back in June for the Zayden invasion. And the idea of it is that the Zaydens are landing around the Appalachia, and they're installing these sort of brainwave analyzers around to read the minds and extract the data of the people around, like the people of Appalachia, which might be a commentary on how our data is being mined by everybody. But you have to run around and go destroy those things. And in it, you interact with this guy named Homer Saperstein, which sounds suspiciously like Homo sapien,
right?
And you never meet him personally. He's only communicating to you through radio. And the way he talks is just very bizarre. He has this sort of cadence about him that implies he's not human. He's like
Right.
an artificial intelligence or
Right.
another alien. And along the way in that quest line, you meet this guy named the Emissary, who he doesn't even have a serious role in the story. It's just a random encounter. He teleports in front of you, and he's like a man in black. He has black sunglasses, a black suit and hat, and he talks really formally. And then if you try and shoot at him, he just disappears in a cloud of black smoke. So they're really playing with those ideas, and I'm sure when Fallout 5 rolls around in 2043, they will elucidate
If
and
that.
and elaborate on that. Yeah, if we're lucky. It's interesting though. I want to, because if I'm Microsoft right now and I own the rights to the Fallout franchise, if I own Bethesda Game Studios and I own Obsidian Entertainment, and I want to kick Sony's ass in exclusives, I'm telling the Obsidian people, like, all right, no, you're making the next Fallout game, Bethesda. You get to play with your space stuff and your Elder Scrolls,
Right.
and hope for the best. But again, as I mentioned before, these aren't the same studios anymore. I'm not even sure if Josh Sawyer and the Obsidian people are the New Vegas people are still necessarily all at Obsidian.
No,
I can tell you that right now.
and it's funny because, like I said, the Outer Worlds it's one of those games where your choices do matter. They affect the outcome of the entire game, and I genuinely loved that game. And I think Obsidian should maybe make a sequel to Fallout New Vegas. I would love to see that. Um, just maybe put that 10 years down, after what happened, with whether or not you sided with Mr. House or not, or it, whatever the case may be, but make it so that you can continue those narratives to see where they ended up in the Mojave, and how it how that chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel, if they agree with Elder Maxon in Fallout 4, and and see how those sort of converge. I'd also love to see a Fallout game set in New York, but I think New York's been destroyed enough in a lot, in a lot of
Yeah,
games.
yeah. The lore of New York is that it's supposed to be a crater.
Yeah,
But the pre-existing lore has never stopped them before. They can just say, "Oh, our sources were wrong." Okay, turns out there's some in New York left. We got bits and pieces of it. My only concern with like giving Obsidian back the IP, having them make a New Vegas 2, is that it's going to be hard to recreate the narrative strength of their previous games. They have raised a very high bar for themselves.
yes.
So anything less than just sheer brilliance is going to be met with disappointment from the community. But yeah, I would. Where is there's a theory? I want to say, if like I have no idea where the next Fallout game is going to be, but if I had to guess, I would say Chicago, because they talk about that like a little bit in all of the games. They mention the Enclave has a presence there, I
Right.
believe. It's a like they talk about Chicago as much in Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 as they talk about Boston in Fallout 3,
That's
which
right.
makes me wonder what they're planning to do. But yeah, New York would definitely be interesting. I if you told me this at the time Fallout 4 came around, I would have said no, because the engine is not capable of handling a New York City environment. But after seeing Starfield, yeah, it's capable of it. It,
But
it, it could make that happen.
it would be interesting, because if they did, like, honestly, Fallout Texas would just be like, there's guns everywhere. You have no problem finding that. You have no problem finding guns in Fallout Texas. There's a gun on every corner.
Oh, oh yeah, you break into a random millionaire's house and there's like, you're like, wait a minute, there's a little private armory in there and
but
stuff.
but in New York, if you think about it, and I think about it in the context of a nuclear bomb would probably devastate most of New York City, but I'm from Queens. I'm from New York
Oh,
originally. I
okay.
live in Pennsylvania now, but I'm originally from New York. So you still have the four outer boroughs that you would be able to actually do, because New Manhattan may very well be a crater, and some of the outlying area around that would probably be highly irradiated, but you still have Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Staten Island and Long Island that you could all play with and actually have a great narrative to go into that. And Boston is not far from there. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts is not actually far from New York. So, but if you can get into the city, you can get in through like you'd have to go through like the Port Authority tunnels and then make your way into like Madison Square Garden, where there's probably a bunch of super mutants, in Knicks jerseys, just
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. They could do something like the glowing sea with Manhattan,
right,
and whatnot. I spent the year of 2019 living in New York City, and I had a great time, though I was staying in Midtown, which yeah, it turns out that was not the place to be.
No,
but
no,
yeah.
no, at all.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Oh my God, right? It's like the freaking red pill. My God. But yeah, it's that it has all of the ingredients for it, and then they can do sort of the thing they did with Fallout 4, innovate that you have the central urban core, but then beyond that, there's almost a kind of they could use Long Island, I suppose, as a means of doing like almost a more like a rural open space that they like to do a lot. That would be neat. It'll be. It's probably so early in development, Bethesda's not even sure at this point. They're just probably sending design docs back and forth. I would doubt they have anything set in stone.
They haven't even started writing
maybe
the story.
Obsidian.
They haven't even started writing the story yet.
I've heard I don't know if this is true. I heard rumors that there might be some sort of Fallout remaster coming. I think something big is scheduled to happen with Fallout 4. There was something in an update added to it that an update added to its SteamDB that hasn't reached players yet. That is, I don't know anything about it, but it's supposed to be the biggest thing that it's seen in like since the last DLC, which could mean it it might actually be getting a DLC or something, or it might just be like a series of minor bug fixes. But my understanding is they seem to be planning something to happen with Fallout 4 around the time that Amazon series releases, and that's going to be
that could be interesting. That's because I can't lie, I'm excited to see that show. You know what I would honestly like, because I've never played Fallout 1 or 2, because the isometric thing I can't. That's it's not my game style, but if they remastered them into more like a Fallout 3 type game, I would definitely go back and play those two games. I would give them a shot. Keep the core story elements and story beats there, but make it so it's more of a first-person shooter or third person, depending on how you like to play, and do that. I would love to see that.
At that point, it would almost make more sense to just do a new game set in those same environments. Because the problem with Fallouts 1 and 2 is that you're essentially traveling all over the American West Coast. Mm-hmm. And like traveling is different. Like in Fallout, in Fallout 3 or Fallout 4, you physically walk from the Washington Monument to Vault 1. Whereas in Fallouts 1 and 2, what you do is you open up your Pip-Boy, you say, all right, I want to go from New Reno to say like Arroyo or something, and instead your character just travels on the map as you watch them. Okay. So they would like, if they were to do that in a sort of third person game, they would have to physically render like thousands of miles. It would be difficult for that to work in that sort of capacity as a remaster, in my opinion. But I've been wrong about bigger things before, so.
What would you say if they did something like how Grand Theft Auto 6 is trying to do, where they had multiple areas to go, like say, okay, you could go to the Commonwealth, you could fast travel to, New Vegas, you could fast travel to, Boulder City or New Reno, or you could fast travel to, like, that would be a massive game. But the story beats of that, like you're trying to basically, like, and if I'm right and I'm saying, well, you're trying to put the United States back together. It's just what factions can you get to work together, or would you have to eliminate to make it so that we can kind of try to rebuild the United States of America. And then, because I ain't gonna lie, I also want to see Fallout London. I'm so excited to see what they do with that.
Oh yeah, well, first of all, roll back a little bit. I didn't know they were doing that with Grand Theft Auto. They're doing multiple
Yeah, you're
locations.
supposed to be able to go from like Vice City to San Andreas, and I think also Liberty City, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, you have the multiple
Oh, that's neat.
protagonists. That's from what I understand. Of course, I could be wrong. I don't know. Rockstar, let me know. But but I think that's what they're going for, and I think that's a hell of a neat thing to do for those games, because it gives you way more ability to tell a broader story. And I would love to see them do that. Even in the Elder Scrolls, like if I could go from, go to elsewhere, to Cyrodiil, to Skyrim, to Hammerfell and all that, I think that would be cool too,
Yeah, I would love it if in the Elder Scrolls 6 they threw us a curveball and said, "Oh, this is it's not just Hammerfell, it's also Cyrodiil, and you want to go visit Skyrim 300 years in the future, you could do that too." Something like that, I think I think something like that would be reasonable for the progression of like the sort of technology and the consoles and everything.
Yeah.
But and especially with the 20,000 people working on the game, it seems like that would be amazing. But I did not know Rockstar was doing that. What were we talking about?
Shit. Right. The how to make the next Fallout game a little bit more user friendly. Like where could we go in the next one that would make it feel like okay? And maybe if they could come back to like again, Fallout 4, love the game, not a fan of all aspects of it. Like I don't want to build settlements all day, and I honestly don't want to go on so many fetch quests and hey, Preston Garvey says go here, take out these gunners, and then like it's a repetitive loop that doesn't really intrigue anybody. How do you think they could refresh that or make it fresher and make it better so that people are more invested in the game?
Oh man, if I had the answer to you, I would be working for them. That's you see, it's my job to criticize what they make after they've made it,
Right.
while sitting back in my ivory tower. But oh yeah, I don't envy that, because a lot Bethesda, like the general quest structure is fetching things.
Yeah.
It's an anomaly when they go out and they do something a little bit more. It's an anomaly when they have those Skyrim Civil War battles and whatnot. Normally, you're being told by a Daedric prince or someone like, "All right, go clear that fort, go get me that crown." Oh, okay, and it's what they build around that drives the narratives and whatnot. Starfield is kind of the same way. There's a lot of go here, reach X point, kill enemies, return. Like that. That's the formula, and that's kind of how Red Dead Redemption is, though to a lesser extent. They do a lot better of a job with like bringing NPCs into the mix and diversifying the objectives. But yeah, I want to be able. I think I want to know what to tell you. I would just hope they kind of revert back to the sort of darker undertones that we mentioned earlier. That they go back to those more like depressing almost themes that make you think, what is this? That would be neat. I will say, there is this really interesting quest in Fallout 76 that breaks away from the mold that my friend Anachronite was telling me about earlier. There's this mission where you can kind of like become a member of the Enclave. Hypothetically, you go to you go to an old base and you swipe a card, and the whole process is automated. There's no NPCs involved. But one of the sort of training missions the Enclave gives you is it's like, all right, we're going to show you the rooms of 5 children. Figure out which one of these children's families are communist.
Okay.
And it's this really neat thing where you're going from room to room, inspecting, like looking for context clues and trying to determine which of these children could possibly have a communist family, so the Enclave could go basically violate the Geneva Conventions against them. And you're looking at their little teddy bears. And there's one room where there's a Chinese kid. A Chinese kid lived there, and it's like, surely it's this. No, it's the kid whose family was coal miners
Right.
in Appalachia, and that's a neat that was a neat almost return to the sort of dark elements. They can get creative once in a while, but just the nature of what they're doing, it makes it so most of their quests are always going to be the sort of thatch orientated, or God forbid you have to build this in your settlement quests, which I hope they don't do more of.
And it wasn't so much that I didn't like the settlement building per se. It's that some of the places they make, they give you as far as settlement goes, you don't have enough space to actually do much of anything. And, and like, for example, like at the end of it, once you take out the gunners in Quincy, you should be able to build Quincy.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you should be able to effectively build up Diamond City even more. You should be able to build up Good Neighbor even more. And speaking of Good Neighbor, that Hancock, a hell of a very well written character.
He's a fun guy.
He's a fun guy. Yeah. He's a fun guy.
He's like a less moral like Han Solo or something.
Yeah.
He has the demeanor of Han Solo and the ethics of Genghis Khan, and it's hilarious.
It's hilarious I want to say the justification between him being this wanting to be feared, but also wanting to be respected. And it goes down to that question, would you rather be feared or respected? Well, I want to be feared because the fear lasts longer. You know what I'm saying? And yet he's respected pretty much almost everywhere he goes. Like even when you talk, when you get those interactions between like Kate and Hancock, when you go take one as opposed to the other or what have you. But I think the funniest is Strong roasting Piper. Yeah. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Strong say same about little lady.
You know what I'm saying?
He might be my favorite companion. It's the super mutant companions are always a good time. They had one in Fallout 3. I forgot his name. Fox was your super mutant. And they always have that funny that funny demeanor. But yeah, Hancock is great. I wish they would have fleshed his backstory out a little bit more, because it's like, oh, like why are you wearing that costume? Like there could be a funnier story beyond you found that in a museum.
I mean, and also I wish Fahrenheit would have had a bigger role in the game. I wish there were more. I wish there was more to do with Mama Murphy. And again, these are all small critiques of that I have of a really, really dope game. And the only thing I wish is that my moral choices mattered more than just, oh, Kate disliked that. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, so what?
That's what they do in Starfield for sure, is like you have like actions that some of your followers like, and actions that some of them don't like. I can't. So I really don't play a lot of games other than like open world stuff, Bethesda stuff. Are there any games that are there any games that strike you as maintaining a sort of better companion or follower system? Does the Outer Worlds play with that a little bit better?
The Outer Worlds does, because for example, the companion you get, Parvati, she is, and of course, when you do their missions for them, you get to flesh out their characters even more. But Parvati is one of my favorite characters. She's one of the most well-written characters, and she's vocal about things she doesn't like that you do, or things that she wants you to do. She's they're very vocal in that they don't like it when you disenfranchise people. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a really major thing. And they always give you like an idea of morally what would be a better choice. And I think they do that really well. And again, it's not surprising. It's an Obsidian game. Because like if you play Fallout New Vegas, Rose of Sharon Cassidy, Rose Cassidy, she's got her moral values that she sticks to. Eddie has his thing, he's a robot, but he still has some moral value to him. Arcade Gannon is very moral in his upstanding, but then you got somebody like I forget the sniper dude's name, but he's a little more like, we can kill them all. I don't really care. Like,
is that Boone?
Boone, yeah, Boone.
Yeah.
So, a little bit more, and they have, I think Obsidian has a better grasp of a companion system than Bethesda does in that regard, because even in Fallout 3, the companions, like, of course, before Broken Steel gets added and they actually change the ending, but for Fox to sit there and be like, yeah, I'm a super mutant and I can take the radiation, but it's your destiny. You gotta die.
Yeah, you're on your own, buddy.
What are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? No, take your big ass in there and go press the button. Like, what do you mean? I don't have to die. Like, I don't. You can die. You're not gonna die. You're not even gonna get sick. You're not gonna get a sneeze from this. Meanwhile, I go in there. Well, that's that. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, that is really funny. He could easily. This is like as simple as taking a few steps to him, and he's like, "No, this human destiny."
What you know about human destiny? You're a super mutant. Shut up and get your ass in there. Like,
so, would you say Obsidian's strength is that they're better at sort of like writing and crafting the narratives for the companions necessarily?
I think so. Yeah, I think they're better at that world building element of what you do matters in the grand scheme. Because I mean, even when you get to the end of Fallout New Vegas and say you did the DLC with what's that boy's name, Ulysses, and you actually do shoot the missiles and destroy the NCR and Kaisar's Legion, that matters. And your followers, even when you go back, because you can't take none of them with you, but when you go back, it matters. They don't like you for that. You know what I'm saying? They're mad at you for that sort of thing. As one would be like, yo, you just saw another nuke. What's wrong with you? Like, I get it. Like, even Fallout 3, like I've only, and it's funny because, and I'm going to talk a bit more about this when we talk about Skyrim, but I have never, ever once played a villainous role in any of these games.
Oh, really?
I've
You're missing out.
I know, but I did one time. I set off the nuke in Megaton.
You need to do that. You need to do that once.
I immediately felt bad. I really did because Moira Brown. I really like Moira Brown as a character. I felt bad for her. Like, is something on my face? Yeah, your face is no longer your face, girl. Like,
you could be really mean in the older Bethesda games in New Vegas. Like you could see a ghoulified Moira Brown and like make her feel really bad about it.
Yeah. Like, I feel bad. I feel bad talking to God like he's shit. Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, because you know what? I can't lie. I feel racist as hell doing that. I feel like I don't know if I should do that. I feel bad. Like, nah, you're just a ghoul. I'm not gonna hate on you for the less of skin that you have. Like, no.
Yeah, there are certain things that I just won't even do in video games because I'm afraid the negative karma is gonna find its way to me.
Yes.
Like in real life. Like if I accidentally throw a grenade in Fallout 4 and kill a cat, I'm reloading that game and like atoning for that. Oh my god. Yeah, there are things like that you cannot do.
That's the other thing. Companions really don't know how to get the hell out of the way of my bullets. Don't jump in front of my bullets. Stay behind me, stay to the side. Don't what are you doing? No, and again, it goes down to that companion system, because in New Vegas, I can tell Arcade Gannon, like, okay, use melee attack. You know what I'm saying? You use your melee. Back up. You know what I'm saying? Come a little closer. Like, you have those options. Fallout 4 kind of took that away and made it just, okay, here's my sarcastic response.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely true. New Vegas is... I would agree with you with New Vegas, especially. The strength of their companions, like Ulysses, is... He had so much fucking dialogue that they couldn't fit him on the disc,
Yeah.
so they had to put him in a DLC. They really that's kind of the neat thing about it is you can tell those guys were like they were really passionate about what they were doing
Yes.
when they were developing everything. Every corner of that universe like reeks of like someone was having, they were probably stressed out of their fucking mind working on an 18-month deadline,
Oh,
but
yeah.
someone was having the time of their lives when they were doing that.
And if you think about it, like if you really look at it, Fallout New Vegas doesn't have any, again, 18 months, yeah, but how many bugs are actually in that game as opposed to Fallout 4 that had a lot? You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
well,
Like,
there are New Vegas has gotten a lot better. When it released, it was like nightmarish territory. That's part of
okay,
the I think that's part of the reason why it did poorly initially is because it was so poorly optimized. But now it's I mean 10 years later they patched a lot of that. So it's better now.
and I mean, and again, I'm 41, so I think about all the games I played as a kid that there was no internet, there was no forums to check. You had to wait for Electronic Gaming Monthly or Nintendo Power or something to come out to try and get an answer for anything, or hope your friend at school played the game and figured something out that you couldn't figure out. I remember playing Metal Gear, or I should say, I remember watching my older brothers play Metal Gear, and there's the one for the Nintendo, and there's a part in the game where you have to get caught to get the bomb blast suit to get out. And I think this is back when you had a fucking 20-digit password you had to put in to continue where you were, and we had to reset like for 2 months straight until finally my 7-year-old ass is like, hey, what if you actually have to get caught? And of course, my brother's like, shut up, you don't know nothing. Oh, wait, no, we had to get caught. There was no way not to do that. Like, so I wonder how much that's changed gaming for people who didn't grow up with that lack of internet service. I guess I don't know how old you are. I guess you're in your late 20s.
Yeah, well, I'm actually early. I guess coming into mid 20s. I'm 24 right now.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, so I definitely like can resonate with that because I remember playing the ancient Grand Theft Autos, and I would like we'd get these I think it was Game Informers or something in the mail, and you'd put in the cheat codes and stuff. One of the biggest shifts, especially it's not necessarily just the internet, is how like the gaming media and YouTube has evolved such that like you already know everything about a game 6 months before it comes out.
Yeah.
Like you are like there used to be like an experience. Like my first time playing Fallout 3, it was like, oh, this is a game that takes place in the wasteland. That's all I knew. Post-apocalyptic game. And over time, it's like, oh, okay, this is I must have been like 8, so it's like I don't know what Washington D.C. is, but okay, that's apparently where this is set and all that.
Right.
And nowadays, that experience is kind of gone. The novelty of it, at least, especially for me, because now like my career kind of revolves around figuring this stuff out before it happens. But I remember like when new Call of Duties would come out and everyone racing to figure out the new meta. Now, like by the time a new Call of Duty is released, there's 100 hours of gameplay of it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like streamers will figure out the meta within a day.
Yeah.
It's really changed what was initially like an exciting sort of first experience, like what I remember being a first experience where everyone's on the same level, having the shared experience of figuring things out. That's kind of gone now.
Yeah.
In the 2020s, but I suppose I could get that back if I just stopped watching the news.
Probably.
But that's yeah, I could get some. Well, I guess you could get some of that back, but if you go into Call of Duty without understanding the meta, you're gonna have a particularly rough. You're gonna have a much rougher time than you would have in Black Ops 1,
Yeah.
which was probably one of my favorite games of all time.
I was more of a Modern Warfare too. I love that game. There was this dope game called Warhawks for the PlayStation 3. It was sort of Call of Duty-esque, more, but it was like a third-person shooter more, but you could jump in a plane, ride in a tank, ride in a Jeep. It was like all online. It was one of the only times I enjoyed playing a game online because I do not like playing games online because and there's only so many times some little kid gonna call me the N-word before I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
And I don't mean noob, because I don't care. Call me that. I don't care. Fine. But boy, oh boy, don't you dare let that N-bomb drop on me, man. Like, I hate online gaming, but that one was really fun. But I haven't gotten into the new Call of Duties. I can't stand Fortnite.
Oh yeah.
I never got into PUBG. I want to, and that's why I still play Skyrim as opposed to Elder Scrolls Online, which I have played and I do enjoy.
Yeah, there is certainly a toxicity in these in online games that has like always kind of driven me crazy. I think I'm kind of the same way. I don't really like hopping into lobbies and stuff. Uh, but I I remember I played this game called Rust, and it's weird being a grown man, like thinking, "Wow, I was bullied
Yeah,
today, and my
yeah.
feelings are hurt, and I didn't have a good time." But yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, man. And unfortunately these kids ain't getting ass whoopings like they used to. So
No, yeah, that's definitely part of it.
there's only so much the time out going to do. But I think gaming as a whole has gotten significantly better from where I started with Duck Hunt and Mario and Ghouls and Ghosts, which I have honestly never beat to this damn day. I have never beaten Ghouls and Ghosts.
Ghouls and
Yeah,
ghosts.
and I'm probably not gonna try to beat that game because it was hard as hell, and I don't want to try. Like that's or Ghosts and Goblins, Ghouls and one of them shits. They sucked. I'm not, I'm not playing. What is that damn shit? Battletoads. I'm not playing that. But I will go back and play that old Ninja Turtle game where you had to go and swim through the dam and disarm the bombs and all that. That was not so hard to me as a kid. I don't know why everybody thinks it's so hard now. Back then, that was fairly easy.
Yeah, it's definitely gone a long way. Everything like it sort of followed that general technological trend of everything just getting a hell of a lot better in the
Yeah.
last like 30 40 years. It makes you wonder what's going to be like 20 years from now. Like is Fallout 5 going to be a VR sort of
Probably.
artificial reality thing? That would be interesting, but that technology is still not where it needs to be.
No.
It's all
No.
it's all getting crazy.
What was your first gaming experience?
Oh, probably must have been like two or three, and my dad and I would play, I think Donkey Kong on the N64,
Okay.
something like that. Yeah, then we played there was this game called Rampage,
Oh,
I
I
want
know
to say on the
Rampage.
it might have been on the PlayStation 1, something like that. I played a lot of. As the years grew, my so too did my gaming addiction. By
Mm-hmm.
the time by the time I was in, I think I got a PS3 for my 10th birthday, and that was the beginning of the end for me because I completely isolated myself. That's all I wanted to do was play PlayStation games all day. I got really into Uncharted. That was oh my that was a really good story. At least for a 10-year-old me. And that's
Yeah.
also when I got into Fallout 3, and then I discovered Skyrim and Red Dead Redemption. And of course, as a kid, when you have no responsibilities but to play the game, it's you have a unique ability to get immersed into stuff and
Yeah.
just fall in love with it. Like one summer is like, oh, I have no more responsibilities ever again.
Right.
And nowadays, like a year, like I thought it was February. It's September of 2023 already. My God.
Ready. And for my old ass, that's freaking me out, man. Like I
Yeah, you got.
and like I said, four kids, a lady to, unfortunately, once you got a lady to satisfy, gaming is not your only priority. It doesn't work. You better joystick something else, brother. It's a little different, but I still, especially because I'm a night owl, so I still eke out my time to play. Like right before we got on, I was playing Fallout New Vegas. I'm in the Sierra Madre right now, trying to play on that. And I think I remember one of the hardest games I ever played was freaking The Lion King, and to this I I know I beat the game, but God Almighty, that shit took me forever. I hated that game. I love the movie. I hated that game.
And those games, do you still go back and play those retro games nowadays, or are you pretty like steadfast and you're a bigger fan of the modern stuff?
It depends on how I'm feeling. With Steam, I'm fortunate that I've been able to kind of go back and play some of those old games and thoroughly enjoy them. Like one of my favorite games prior to any I've ever got into any Bethesda game was, Rival Schools. And there was a RPG that came out, it was a turn-based RPG, came out back in the days for PlayStation called The Legend of Dragoon. And I would play that right now. I loved that. That's how much I love that game. I'll play when they drop that Snake Eater remake. I'm probably gonna get that. I definitely am. I'm waiting for the Final Fantasy VII remake Part 2 to come out before I even delve into playing that, because to this day, one of my saddest moments is watching Eris get killed. Like,
Is that so? Does that play with like Greek mythology? When you say Eris, or is that
um, and when Sephiroth stabs her through the damn chest,
Oh, okay.
that crushed my soul, man. Back in '97, that crushed my soul. Like trying to level up to 99 before you even get to that part, just to hope she lives, and she doesn't. She just doesn't.
One of the most tragic gaming moment for me, I still remember, I was like 12 years old playing Modern Warfare 2 and watching General Shepard land outside of the estate and say, "Do you have the DSNs? We got it, sir." And then he says, "Good, that's one less loose end," and he kills Ghost in front of you.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
I still think about that sometimes.
That was tragic, and
Yeah.
and that's what people don't understand. People who are non-gamers don't get it. Like my girl, she is not a gamer at all, but I'm somebody. I've always been an avid reader.
Oh,
I love a good story. So if the story is good, it makes me want to play that game. And that's why I have gravitated towards RPGs and especially Bethesda games, because the stories are phenomenal. And when you talk about Skyrim, the lore about the Dragonborn, how Tiber Septim was a Dragonborn, and then you go through this whole history of it, and did he or did he not kill King Kula Kane? Who knows? You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh yeah.
like
There's so much with that.
there's so much with that, but that's a great story element. The Thalmor being racist douchebags, like that's real world shit that you can kind of see the parallels of things. Like they suck. The Thalmor suck, but if you look at it from their perspective, you're like, kind of understand. Like,
yeah, and Parthenax is this sort of like he does that thing like, which is better, to be born good or overcome your inner evil through great effort? And it's like, and it's teaching 11-year-old me about like redemption,
yep,
and stuff like that. I did kind of disparage the main storyline of of Skyrim, because it's not really, that wasn't the driving factor for it wasn't my favorite component, but the more I do think about it, it was a really fucking good game. Like going up to High Hrothgar and meeting with a bunch of like monks who yell at things for a living.
yeah. And I will not kill Parthenax. I don't.
Oh, dude,
I will not kill Parthenax. I don't care what.
I dated a girl, and like part of the long ensemble of reasons that relationship didn't work out is she killed Parthenax, and I shit you not, she didn't see anything wrong with it. She was like, no, he needs to answer for his crimes, and I'm like, man, that's a red flag. Like you killed Parthenax enthusiastically.
Yeah, that's a red flag. Yeah, we can't be friends after that. And it's funny because I will definitely go through all the Blade stuff to get that I think it's an elixir that Esbern makes you, that gives you. I'll go through all of that, reform the blades and everything, before I'll ever go up to High Hrothgar and take care of and do all that before they tell me, yeah, you can't join us anymore if you're not going to kill Parthenax. Like, man, fuck
I'd
you,
rather kill
man.
Delphine than Parthenax.
I
Like
really
Delphine and
would.
Esbern, yeah. It's like, what have you guys been doing exactly these last 100 years? You seem to just be telling me what to do,
Right.
without carrying your own burden. But speaking of I do suspect my theory is that the Elder Scrolls 6's story is going to kind of revolve around the one that they didn't use for Skyrim.
Your
So
real septum coming back.
yeah, that whole I think that could be great because it would provide it's the only foreseeable plot that I can imagine if they decide to set the game forward in time because they're teasing this conflict with the Thalmor.
Yeah.
And while they could do a game that's just about the war with the Thalmor, I'm not sure if Bethesda really wants to do like I'm not so sure how well that would work. Like the Skyrim Civil War was great, but one, it was an ancillary plot. It was a side story more than anything. And two, I'm not sure if those mechanics would lend themselves to a Thalmor thing. But if you set the game maybe 100 years in the future, and the Thalmor have already won, and there's already a checkmate, then you could do. I think they could do something interesting with like, we need you to go find there is someone out there who can wake us from this nightmare, something like that. There's one left.
We need you to go to. We need you to go to Atmora, wherever the hell he is.
We need you to go east and find the rightful emperor. Yeah. But they also kind of did that with Oblivion anyway, so it'll be. It'd be interesting to see what they do. I don't envy the job of deciding what to inspire that story.
I mean, by my way of thinking, technically, as the Dragonborn, you have the right to claim the throne of Tamriel. That makes sense to me. Like, as the Dragonborn, you should have the right to be able to say, I should be able to run this. I'm the Dragonborn. I have that bloodline within me. Therefore, I have the right to conquer this shit and take the fight to the Thalmor. What I would like is if like the first part of the game is, and again, maybe make it so you can travel to multiple locations throughout the continents, but you're fighting the Thalmor, and by the mid-game point, you lose to the Thalmor, and then they send you to go get help from Uriel Septim, or go find him and bring him back, or his heirs back, to relight the dragon fires and go through all that.
Yeah, I definitely don't think they're going to do the Dragonborn thing again. They might do something like Nerevarine, or you're some other ancient hero from legend. Maybe you're like the reincarnation of... What's that guy's name? It's I accidentally called him something profane all the time. I think it's Pellinol. Yeah, Pellinol Whitestrake.
Yeah.
The
Knights of the Nine.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Todd Howard will figure something out.
I'm sure.
I'm sure. Yeah,
but I remember him. I think he was on Lex Fridman's podcast, and he was talking.
Yes,
and I loved that. I loved listening to that because I like Todd Howard. I love Lex Fridman. And he was talking about like this might be his like the Elder Scrolls 6 may be his last hurrah as far as like going within the as the head of Bethesda Game Studios or whatever, and then pass the torch on, which probably not a bad idea. You've done enough, man. All praises due to Todd Howard, because without him, I don't know where we'd be in this story, but I would definitely love to see what the Elder Scrolls 6 has in store, but I don't know if the Thalmor should or could win the war, because I think that largely depends on whether or not the Stormcloaks were beaten in the Civil War. And I've done it both ways, where I sided with Ulfric, and I've done it where I've sided with the Imperials, and I think that killing Ulfric probably makes more sense. The people of Windhelm don't like you, but so what?
Yeah. The Empire scene, because general like the Stormcloaks' frustration with the Empire is that they're not willing to fight the Thalmor, whereas the Empire is clearly like biding their time, trying to get their shit together. Like General Tullius pretty much blatantly says, "Yeah, we're gonna have another war after this, after
Right.
you defeat the Stormcloaks." So I've always liked the Empire. The Stormcloaks are also like blatantly racist in like Windhelm with how they treat the Dark Elves and shit.
And
So
Argonians. And
yeah.
all right, to be fair, I ain't never been the biggest fan of Argonians. They creep me the fuck out. Like, I don't like Argonians. Oh, I finally made one. His name, and it's funny, his name was Grimlock Autobot.
Grimlock Autobot.
Grimlock Autobot. That was my Argonian. He was Grimlock from the Transformers. And I was, because I'm an 80s kid, so I grew up watching that. That was the only name I could think of that made any sense to me. But I'm not the hugest Argonian fan. I personally, my favorite characters to play as are Khajiit.
Khajiit?
I love the Khajiit.
My favorite character to play all is usually just like a really jacked dude.
Yeah.
Usually, I usually play as an Imperial because I like the Empire, but
I like
it's
the money.
hilarious.
I like getting the money.
Yeah, the money. You've got you get that bonus. What is it that Nords get? They get those frost bonuses.
Yeah.
And
And
voice of the Emperor.
And it's funny because I always play as a female protagonist.
Really?
I always do. I think I'll always make one Frank Starfire character. Always do one, but ultimately I always play as a female protagonist. And there's it's funny because when I play Skyrim, and I've been playing since it came out. So I've made characters where it's like, oh, this is Tony Stark that got sent back in time and he doesn't have access to technology, but his shouts are the repulsor rays and he uses just ice and frost magic as his beams, wearing steel plate armor, so he homages Thor and da 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 da. I do that. I've done but every time I make a new character, they have they have this war paint that like covers the eye and it's like a little two joints there, and I call that the mark of Starfire. So I create a story about the protagonist within the story so I can enjoy it more because I'm weird. I don't know if everybody
I've adopted this thing. Usually, I do it for like basically so that way people can notice it as an Easter egg in my videos. But my Fallout 4 character, I basically like I have a bunch of, but the one I always record with his name is Curious George W. Bush. And it's hilarious because when people notice that in the comment section, they're like, wait, I can't figure this out. But I usually try and style like my characters based off of like politicians or celebrities, just because I think it's funny. Like, what would Tom Cruise do in this situation? And funnily enough, with Starfield, I tried to make my guy Todd Howard, but there was room for improvement there.
I mean, it's hard to really get a perfect depiction of these people, but sometimes it's you're able. And of course, like I said, Tony Stark obviously was an Imperial because, he's rich.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Tony Stark is an Imperial.
Tony Stark's an Imperial. I've never played as an orc. I've never once played as an orc.
I don't think I've done that either.
I've never, and like I said, I've never done the villain build. And so there's that one trophy you get for having 1,000 bounty in every hold. I've never gotten that. I should do it at least once. Never done it.
I think I've gotten I think I've got pretty much all the achievements on console. Hilariously though, if you check my PC stats, I've got like at 3,000 hours and 0 achievements. Because I always activate the console and go into free cam and do that. So it's pretty funny. But people will see that. Like I was showing my friend Corey the other day, like kind of recently this came up. I have let me tell you, I can tell you how many hours I have right now, actually. I have I have 2,974 hours and 0 achievements. And for Skyrim Special Edition, not Anniversary Edition, not Legendary Edition for Skyrim Special Edition.
Oh man, and of course you put out the mysteries icebergs. I didn't know what the hell an iceberg was till that. Never listened to one before those. Those were like highly informative, and then of course, and again, like you say, you're able to kind of throw in stuff from the Elder Scrolls Online to kind of flesh out some of the details, and even be able to go back to Morrowind and Oblivion, and even Battlespire, which I'm like, huh? What the fuck is that? I didn't know there was a damn mobile game for the Nokia. Like, really? Okay.
Oh yeah, the Frost people, or yeah. There's that's kind of again. I think that's one of the things that has been key to the channel's success is going back and saying like, okay, ESO has this giant compendium of lore in there, but it has a relatively less active on YouTube player base.
Right.
How do I and the secret is you just find a way to connect it to Skyrim, because people will click on a Skyrim video, though they're a little hesitant to click on an ESO lore video.
Probably. But again, if you're a fan of the universe, then chances are you'll probably jump in. What is your least favorite faction in Skyrim?
Oh, my least favorite, probably the Bard's College. But well, I don't know. So the Bard's College they're not really a serious faction. They have like 3 quests.
Right.
I maybe I don't know. The Forsworn seems pretty mean. They seem like bad dudes. But then again, if you look at they got their own. The Forsworn are like Stormcloaks, kind of. It's like this is actually we were in the Reach first. We are the first of the Reachmen, and we just want everyone to go home and give us our land back.
Which probably not going to happen.
yeah, it's probably not happening. But I guess my least favorite. Don't tell anyone I said this. My least favorite faction might be the Stormcloaks, or well. If we're not talking about playable factions, the Falmor, right? I mean, they're the bad guys.
Well, obviously, but I mean, no. I guess what I mean more is the ones that have actual quest lines: Thieves Guild, Companions, Dark Brotherhood, College of Winterhold. Because I can tell
College
you
of Winterhold.
College of Winterhold. Yeah, I think that's universal across the board. So much cut content from that faction's quest line. So much stuff that you don't get to do, and then all of a sudden I'm the Archmage. I just got here.
Yeah, how you don't have to cast a single spell in the magical college. I would say I still don't think it's a bad quest line. I just think it's the least good of them. It's because compared to the Dark Brotherhood, that's a really good one. Finding Astrid burned half alive after she betrayed you.
Yeah.
To a lesser extent, the Thieves Guild and Mercer Frey. That's an interesting story. The Companions with like their whole trying to redeem themselves from the curse. I would say the College of Winterhold is my least favorite for the reasons you mentioned, and because I think it has less compelling characters. It has the least compelling. It has no Aella the Huntress or Astrid or Vizara. I don't remember any of their names.
I do love J'zargo. He's one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite companions. Actually, J'zargo's actually a great companion. I love the Thieves Guild the most, just because again, and even with the addition of the Cowl of Nocturnal, the great Fox, the great Cowl. I think that because I remember playing that initially, like, yo, who's the Gray Fox? And there was no there's no Gray Fox.
There's no continuity between that Thieves Guild and the one from Oblivion. Like it's all decentralized, and they don't elaborate on that at all in the game's main quest line, which is bothersome. The Creation Club gives us a little bit of closure, but I wish we would have got a DLC or something that explored that a little bit deeper.
I would have loved if they made it, and I mean, I guess it's kind of hard to do that if technically your character from Oblivion is technically Sheogorath. So, could you still be the Gray Fox and come and drop your cowl on somebody in Skyrim like, hey, Cyrodiil's done with the Thieves Guild, you take it now. Like, no, that,
They had
And
the only reference was that marble bust in Mercer Frey's
right,
house
right,
of
right.
the fox.
And even, there are certain aspects to Skyrim that I guess it makes sense. Like, you probably don't need an acrobatic skill in Skyrim because there's not many jumpy, flippy things to do in Skyrim. You're climbing mountains and walking, you're not flipping all over the place like you were in Cyrodiil. It's more mountainous. Horses obviously don't follow the law of gravity at all, but they just don't. But and I think, like I said, I think Thieves Guild is my favorite, but the Dark Brotherhood probably has the best story arc of the guilds of the the ancillary quest lines that you could have in that regard. I think they do.
Yeah. I loved everything about the Dark Brotherhood. The characters were great. Really, really great cast. Astrid's voice actor did a tremendous job. Then you got to deal with Cicero and Babette,
Who I don't
and you
kill.
had
I don't kill Cicero.
Nazir. Oh, you
I
don't kill Cicero?
don't kill Cicero. No, I like
I
Cicero.
I can't let him get away with. Does he kill Arnbjorn? Is that his name?
He doesn't
The
kill
where?
Armbjorn, but he does stab him up pretty good.
Oh, okay.
He
All
kind
right.
of
Well,
stabs him
that's a
up.
little bit redeeming.
Yeah, he stabs him up pretty good, but he does manage to make it back to the Falkreath Sanctuary. And then it is true, like when you come back from, Morrow, killing the fake emperor, and then Morrow is setting everybody ablaze. You see Vizara dead. You see Armbjorn fighting for his life as a werewolf. You see, you don't see Astrid anywhere, but Gabriella is dead. And obviously they couldn't kill Babette because she's a kid. They weren't just going to murder a kid, even if she was
Yeah,
a
we're gonna
vampire.
kill a kid off.
They're not doing that, but her poor spiders are dead. And Nazim made it out. So there's parts of that story, and again, like you say in your video, these are people that you have grown to care for in a way throughout the entirety. Festus Krex being dead kind of hurts. Like, damn, man, I like that guy. He's
And
got a
it's funny because you're sympathetic to Morrow because like Morrow is this guy who just kind of wants to protect the Emperor, and you murder his son.
yep.
So it's like, all right, well, man, I guess that's fair.
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah.
And the fact that I get Lucien Lachance back, who, when I played Oblivion and they murdered him, and I see him hanging with his tongue cut out, I'm like, oh no,
Yeah.
Lucien Lachance, you shouldn't be dead. It was this bastard.
Yeah, they did. They really hit it out of the park with the Dark Brotherhood quest line.
Although with Shadowmere, in this one, because in Oblivion, if you can kill Shadowmere, load him up with all of your crap, and then he'll come back to life. In this one, he kind of just stays dead. I was very hurt.
Oh yeah, it's not so glitchy.
Glitchy.
I want to say he does come back if you kill him. Like, I might be wrong though. Like, if you kill him, he'll come back like a week later,
Okay.
and his inventory will be wiped. Yeah, but he'll go a little horsey.
Listen, Skyrim, like I said, Skyrim is, and there's a lot to it, and of course, watching the 10 tiny details that you may still have missed in the Elder Scrolls 5. Like,
You may still have missed in the Elder Scrolls 5.
Like, honestly, and it's funny because I think I watch your videos on YouTube so much. Like, I'll be watching What Culture, and then automatically the very next video up is a 10 tiny details video. Like, that's how my algorithm works. I don't know, if that's just because I watch them so much, but that's how it tends to work for me. But I hear those dulcet tones, and I'm like, oh, and then when a new one drops, I'm like, yeah. Or when you've been away for a while, I'm like, oh shit, Dave, oh, you're good, yeah, he's back. I genuinely worry about you, like, because I know sometimes you come on, you're like, oh, I'm a little sick, part of my voice, and then I'm like, dude, fuck, you got COVID again? Like, what the hell did you do? Like, come on, man, stop licking doorknobs, damn it, like, shit.
Yeah, look in the subway posts in New York.
Yeah, well, that'll get you sick every time.
Yeah, every single time. It's unfortunate. I thought I might be able to get away with it, but yeah. Well, I really do appreciate that. That means a lot. It's crazy what the Elder Scrolls and Fallout have like what an impact those games had on like my existence.
Yeah.
If you would have I had no idea 10 years ago that when I was running around trying to kill my first White One guard so I could steal his armor, that I would end up kind of like, sort of doing this professionally.
And this is what you do for a living. You simply YouTube it up and use your sponsorships and all that. And that's, I mean, I'm working my way there, man. I'm trying to get there, but
yeah, it's really about just being as tenacious as possible. Like,
yeah.
just keep pushing forward. And because before like the Skyrim stuff, I was uploading Black Ops, like Call of Duty Black Ops videos. I would aim, like I started aiming my camera at my TV to record. It may have actually been Modern Warfare 2, not understanding what a capture card was or any of that stuff.
Right.
But after like 6 or 7 years, I slowly got the hang of it.
And as a matter of fact, I remember, if I'm not mistaken, you actually did a 10 Tiny Details you may not know about Red Dead Redemption 2. You dropped like one of those. And,
yeah.
I remember that. And, there's, again, like, it's interesting because, without YouTube, like, I think about it like this shit. I used to be a rapper. If we had YouTube when I was growing up, forget about it. But now it's like, it's so the accessibility that you have to be able to engage with different people, learn from them, find new content and things like that. It's an amazing time for that. How is that been, how has that been a benefit to you as far as what you do in your daily life?
It's been like it's had a tremendously positive impact on my life. It's given me a degree of financial security that I think a lot of people don't necessarily have, particularly at this age.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, like, because YouTube started blowing up right around the time I started going to college. I just stopped showing up to classes one day. I don't know what happened. I need to figure that out. But yeah, I just stopped showing up. So that was neat. I gotta kind of avoid the college thing. It's been tremendously positive. I'm super grateful for the impact this has had. I don't know what I'd be doing otherwise. I guess I would be, if it weren't for YouTube, I would be studying anthropology and finance, which I hate finance, but that's the thing that would get me a job. But I love anthropology and history. Those are the things, those things I'm crazy about.
It's funny because when you say that, when you look at when you do your 10 Tiny Details or 5 mysteries you may not have, things like that, it does come off from a very anthropological standpoint. And when you say that now, that actually makes a lot of sense. That actually does make a lot of sense.
I am a huge history dork. If you were to see, downstairs, I have this giant bookshelf of the. It seems every week I'm ordering like a new book about like the rise of the Turks in the East, which is what I'm reading right now. I love that stuff. It's like Skyrim, but it happens.
Yeah,
it's neat. And history, boy, does that get dark sometimes.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. And I mean, I grew up with Time Life, books and the Encyclopedia Britannica and, Mysteries of the Unknown and, giant spiders and all these types of things. Like, so that's very interesting, man. Real quick, tell people something they may not know about you aside from that. Like, what else do you enjoy?
Oh, what else do I? That's a good question. Well, something kind of interesting that's I guess is happening pretty soon. Next, in about 2 weeks, I'm actually going to visit a friend of mine who lives in Armenia, which is, and the thing is right now, at the moment, Armenia is in a very precarious political situation.
Yes.
Because what's happened, Russia, it's tradition, like Armenia, it has a very aggressive neighbor named Azerbaijan, which is a way wealthier, way more populous, and they're fighting over this contested region in the south that's ethnically Armenian, but technically within Azerbaijani borders. And traditionally, Russia has been the country that's like kind of kept everyone from going at it. Like, no, you no fight today. We keep troops nearby. But now Russia's a little busy. So the Azerbaijanis are thinking like, they're massing troops on the border, and it's looking kind of sus. but I booked this trip a while ago, so I'm gonna be in Armenia. Hopefully that doesn't kick off while I'm there. But I'm thinking it might be neat to I don't know, like try my hand at like getting a bunch of B-roll footage while I'm there, and maybe on a second channel, like uploading a video about what's going on, because I am fascinated by like the geopolitics behind that and everything.
I think
And I
they
love traveling.
they don't, there's not a lot of unfortunately, we're here in America, we don't get all of the news all of the time.
Yeah.
You kind of have to search things out if you're not aware of what's going on in other parts of the world. And most people, they're not, because our own political situation is suspect at best.
Yeah. The news is dominated by like domestic politics and culture war stuff, and occasionally we get like what's the word, dispatches from Ukraine that's
Right.
coming in. But beyond those, like those three topics, even like the biggest news junkies in America are kind of unplugged from the rest of the world.
Oh yeah. And it's weird because I consider myself somebody who's very, I like to be informed about what's going on. But even I have to call foul on certain news outlets. Like I love the BBC up until like recently, where they're getting a little more ham-handed with their coverage, and Al Jazeera and different things. Like, but I want to try and stay as informed as humanly possible. Problem is, doesn't always work that way, because you don't always know what to trust as far as who's giving you the real, and so I don't know.
Yeah. What I've always tried to do is I've always like there's of course that advice of like get multiple sources, and that's a good idea, but what I've noticed is so much of modern journalism does seem to just be kind of like reblogging, like for instance the BBC or CBS or something, they will like basically just reblog a post made by a more serious outlet that's
Right.
actually on the front lines, and it's like this didn't add anything to the conversation. I could have just clicked on the original post. So my like the thing that I've kind of been doing over the last few years is I always try and just go as close to the original source as I can. Like I'll try and find for instance Ukrainian stuff. I'll try and like track down the Ukrainian websites and run them through a translator, because there's nothing of there's not much of value that the CNN or Fox News undergrad is adding to the dialogue when they talk about it. Like, sir, you majored in journalism and political science. You're not any more informed than I am about what's going on in the Far East or Near East.
I think that has a lot to do with the fact that what we have today is not journalism. We have media personalities. Journalism is defined as finding facts, verifying facts, and presenting the facts so that you, the viewer or reader, can use your critical thinking to make informed decisions. Media personalities, they only care about ratings, and that's what we get now. We have ratings.
And it's this sort of the clickbaitification that's taken over. It used to be like like CBS, like we have sent a correspondent to the front lines of Vietnam to report on what's happening, and now about 98% of like the Washington Post's or the Wall Street Journal staff is they are over glorified bloggers.
Yeah.
You run a blog, sir. There's no, the investigations are not what they used to be at all. And the people who are doing those things are usually independent or being so heavily persecuted by their governments you'll never hear about them.
Well, pretty much, yeah. Jamal Khashoggi, rest in peace.
Yeah.
Things like that. Like that touched me. Like, damn, man, what if y'all had murdered Dan Rather? You know what I'm saying? Like, geez, like, come on. Like, what are we doing here? Like, but I digress. That's a whole different scenario and road to hoe, man. But listen, man, I appreciate you for taking the time today to talk to me, man. This was beautiful and I appreciate it. Give a few shout outs to anybody you want to shout out, please, by all means.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you very much for having me. You can find me at youtube.com/theepicnate315. That is, I came up with that name when I was 10, And at this point, it's too late to change the branding. The LLCs are already filed, and I don't want to risk losing my position in the algorithm. So
Nah.
uh, you can check me out there. And that's pretty much my only major social. I do have an Instagram where where occasionally I post little stories of what I'm doing. You might see some Armenian stories over time there, but yeah, that's about where you can find me.
That's cool, man. Listen, like I said, thank you very much for Nate Gutierrez, the Epic Nate 315. I am, of course, your boy Frank Starfire. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Of course, we'll link to the description of the Skyrim icebergs or something like that in the description. This will be up tonight, so just be ready. It's gonna be a great time, man. Again, y'all, I thank you ever so much for talking to me, man. You have a good one, brother.
Yeah, thanks. You too.